Rarely do I talk about factory farming on this podcast show. In today's episode, we just pulled back the covers. My guest is Jamie Logan of It's Jamie's Corner, and she is a force to be reckoned with. A young woman who is an animal advocate, a filmmaker, a podcast host, and has been involved in documentaries to do with animal advocacy, factory farming, and showing what the truth is. You are in for a great treat today as I talk with Jamie Logan of It's Jamie's Corner. So stick around.
Welcome to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show, where your host, Kathleen Gage, shines the spotlight on vegan and plant-based businesses and entrepreneurs from all walks of life committed to cruelty-free eating, healthy lifestyles, animal compassion, and the environment. Enjoy the show.
Well, I can't even begin to tell you how excited, Jamie, I am to be talking with you today, because we've both agreed that the world is crazy right now. And it's probably because people are eating animals. And, you know, that's a real topic that I definitely want to get into. But I love the fact that you've got Jamie's Corner. I was on Jamie's Corner, and I just think you are the greatest thing since sliced bread. You know, you are the cat's meow, because what you're doing on YouTube is you're really raising people's awareness. Like I watch people that you interview, and they're just like with their jaw dropping when they see what really goes on in factory farms. It's kind of crazy. You're an animal rights activist. You're a filmmaker. You're a podcaster. You're a YouTuber. I mean, it just goes on and on. So I want to start with, first of all, saying thanks so much for coming on the Vegan Visibility Show.
Oh my God. Well, thank you so much for having me. And thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Well, you know, I could go on, because I really like and I love what you're doing, because you're raising awareness around a very important issue, which is the abuse, the murder, the just craziness around the fact that people think that eating animals is okay. You know, you're definitely an activist and an advocate. So let's start with, when did you first go vegan?
So I first went vegan 4.5 years ago, probably closer to 5 now, but it was really just seeing the cruelty for me. And that's one of the things that I try to do in my advocacy today, is not necessarily to make people angry and want to see all this horrible shit, but you kind of have to see it to change. And so I try to do it in a way that engages them through just kind of being myself, through humor, but also being here's the footage and we should talk about it. So I I do it in a little sneaky, manipulative way where I draw them in. I'm like, hey guys, how's your night going? What's up? What's up? And they think they're probably just going to have a nice little fun conversation. And then we really get into it. And then I ruin their lives forever.
Absolutely. You know, and that's the whole idea, is to get people to have a different take on what it means to consume animal-based products. And what really, in a way, amuses me, but it saddens me, are the people that say, oh, you vegans, you're such elitist and you're putting your nose down to other people. And it's like, no, that's not really it. It's really about the animals. It's about our health. It's about the environment. There's so many factors involved. And now you've got a YouTube channel that's on fire. It's taking off like crazy. You have a podcast. Tell us about how you got your YouTube channel started, because I really want to dig into what made you decide to go that route, or was it that route decided to have you be a part of it?
Oh, for sure. So I went vegan 4.5 years ago, like I said, and I just wanted to do more to really change what's happening to animals in this world. And so I'm trying everything from going to slaughterhouse vigils and trying to rescue animals, to doing demonstrations, doing disruptions in grocery stores. And I started doing these AV cubes. For those of you guys that don't know what that is, it's called Anonymous for the Voiceless. And there's these cubes where we hold TV screens and we show animal agriculture footage in public places. And then you have these educational conversations. So something about the educational aspect of it really is something that I enjoyed, because I like talking to people, I like meeting people, and I like seeing the change. And so I was having these conversations for years, but not recording any of them. And so I work for a film company. That's what I do. And we focus heavily on animal rights content. The film company is called Cave Light Films. And we started filming some of my conversations. And it just, I'm just like a goofy, like I'm a little weird at times. And so for me, I was like, this is supposed to be like really serious and really dark and whatnot. And for some reason, some of these like people, just like the bouncing back between me and these conversations I was having were just like really ridiculous. And so I was like, what if I actually use humor to try and get the message out there? Because there's so much dark, negative stuff, obviously about animal rights, because it's so sad. It's so sad. But not everybody wants to look at that, right? People are like, oh, I don't want to see that because it's so terrible. So I was thinking, well, how do we get them to look? And so by starting up my Jamie's Corner YouTube channel, that was a way, I think, to just draw more people into the message.
Wonderful. Well, and I want to remind people that you're listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. I'm your host, Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Jamie Logan of Jamie's Corner. And Jamie, how can people get in touch with you? First of all, I want to make sure that we put that out there.
Yeah, for sure. So my personal Instagram is JLoKurtz. It's JAYLOKURTZ. But my Jamie's Corner Instagram is It's Jamie's Corner. And yeah, you can just message me. I'm around. I'll respond.
So let's talk about what people experience when they encounter you on the streets, because I love your approach. You're kind of, hey, come on over here. Let me show you something. And then you like shock the pants off of them, which is great because like you said, a lot of people say, I don't want to see that. But the reality is not looking at it doesn't make it go away. It's when we look at it, when we become aware of it, that we actually can make changes. So tell us about some of the encounters that you've had, of the ones that you feel like you really got through to somebody, and then other ones where people may have actually gotten kind of abusive with you. Has that ever happened?
Yes. So it's always a mix. And that's what I love about it, is that you're going to meet so many different people and come across so many different situations. So it never really gets boring. And over the 4 years, of course, I've had people that get really triggered and really angry. And then, of course, I've had people that are like, I'm going vegan now, starting now. And so I've definitely seen a range of that. And with some of the, people that get angry, you over time just learn how to deal with that. Like, I never want to come across as disrespectful or be angry back, because I want to leave them after that conversation with a positive memory of veganism and of me. So we may agree to disagree. We may not, have the same thought process in the end, but as long as like, I know that they'll never look back on the conversation and be like, she called me this, she was, super mean and angry. They might actually think internally, like, maybe this is something I should start thinking about. So I've definitely had my fair share of that. Sometimes I've actually seen some people that had a few drinks that were a little bit belligerent. And, I really try to now stay away from people that are not open-minded whatsoever to it, because it's just a waste of my time. Really like talking with people that want to engage, that have questions, that even if they don't agree with it, that want to have a conversation about it. If somebody's just going to stand there and yell and spit in my face, I just don't have time for you, and you're on my show. So,
yeah. Well,
goodbye.
Have you had that happen? Have you had people spit on you?
I have, yeah. I've had people, throughout all different types of activism that I do, I have had people throw eggs at me and milk. And we actually just came back from this horrific slaughter ritual that happens every single year all over the world, but particularly in New York City, they have chickens in crates. It's called Powerhouse. And these practitioners were literally like hurling eggs at us. I'm like, can we not, let's just have a conversation, come on my show, but I really do want to say that I try to stick to forms of activism that I see results from and that I see change. So with the AV style of activism that I have been doing, where I'm talking to people on the street, I've had people come up to me years later and be like, are you Jamie? And I'd be like, yes, that's me. And they're like, I just want to let you know, I've been vegan since the last time we spoke, which is about 2 years ago.
Oh, I just got little God bumps on that one. I love it. I love it because, and let's talk about the different activism that people do, because you are just brilliant in front of the camera and your approach is great. I do encourage people to go check out your YouTube channel, because actually when I was on your podcast, I was watching your YouTube videos and I was like, oh my gosh, I get to be on her podcast. I was so excited. And you did the same thing with me because my activism comes through the microphone and through writing and wearing my vegan AF shirt when I go running, because I have people either give me a thumbs down or a thumbs up. And I've actually told people about my podcast show when I'm on a run and they go, oh, you're vegan and you're vegan. It's kind of like this club. But what are some different ways that people can do activism? And actually, before you answer that, let's talk about factory farming. Let's talk about what really goes on, because I don't get into that too often on my show, not because I don't want to, but a lot of people are not at that level of activism where they know what's going on with factory farming. So what can you tell the viewers and the listeners about factory farming? What really goes on?
It's worse than you think it is how I'm going to start saying a little bit about that. It is the most exploitive industry by the scale, by the torture and legal abuse that goes on. It is the worst industry to exist because it relates to so many other issues. So it's a workers' rights issue. You think about the people that are working in these slaughterhouses, the drug abuse and substance addiction problems that they then have, the mental, issues, the PTSD that come out of that. That's just one sector of it. Then you have the environmental issue. This is something that is destroying our planet. So we should definitely get on this because it causes ocean, dead zones. It causes species extinction. It causes, so many different environmental issues, like, the amount of resources and water it takes just to feed these animals. And then not only that, of course, the animal issue. We are talking over 69 billion with a B animals killed every single year. And this does not include marine animals. This doesn't include the fish that are taken out of the seas. The UN predicts that we're going to be seeing fishless oceans by 2048. It's that bad. And when you actually look at what happens inside these factory farms and inside these slaughterhouses, it's horrific. It is like your worst nightmare. These animals see their friends being killed right before their very eyes, knowing that they're next. They are electrocuted. Sometimes their throats miss the blade and they're boiled alive in scalding hot tanks. They are fighting for their lives, really.
Right.
And these animals are no different than our dogs and our cats. So it's an issue that we really need to speak up about because it can help solve so many other issues. And back to your first question. Oh, sorry.
Well, I want to dig a little deeper into that because a lot of people think that this is all made up, that we're exaggerating, and we're not. You talked about the workers' rights, and I know that they oftentimes use illegal immigrants and say this is the only way that you can make money. And these people are caught between a rock and a hard place. It's about feeding their family or it's about not working, and so it's not black and white. It's not a cut and dry situation where, they're bad people for working in factory farms. Sometimes they're as abused as the animals, and the whole thing with drug addiction and alcoholism. And actually myself, I've been sober 39 years. I'm very sociably unacceptable when I drink, so I don't drink. Same. And I can only imagine being in that environment to numb yourself. So let's dig a little bit deeper as to why you believe, and you've seen that people don't want to believe it. They don't want to hear it. What's the reason for that?
It's so much easier to ignore the truth. It's kind of like the Matrix. It's kind of like red pill or blue pill. It's like once you know the truth, it's really painful and it's really hard to process this. It's like unimaginable how much suffering comes out of these industries. And so it's sometimes just easier to be like, okay, I don't want to know about it and close a blind eye and just continue on in our ways and stay comfortable. And so many people want to do that. I wanted to do that for the longest time too. But it just got to a point where I kept seeing, these videos on Facebook. I kept seeing some Dominion and Earthlings, or these films on YouTube that just kind of go through how these industries work. And it was like always in the back of my mind. It finally got to a point where I was like, all right, I can't justify it anymore. Like I always called myself an animal lover, right? Like I had a dog. I would volunteer with animals, dogs and cats mostly, but I just didn't connect the dots that the animals on my plate were no different and that they wanted to live as well. So it's a human rights issue, kind of like what you were saying. It's animal rights, health issues, right? So like people are suffering from heart disease, cancer, diabetes at rates that we've never seen before. Heart disease kills so many people every single year.
And it's starting to kill children. That's the mind-blowing thing, is like the obesity rate among kids nowadays is, I think it's at like past 30%, overweight is past 50%, and it's increasing every year. And that's the interesting thing, because I posted something on LinkedIn recently about, your taste buds are not more important than the life of an animal. Yeah. I think it was an effing sandwich, that, and I didn't even realize that was in the post when I shared it. But and then I thought, just keep it up, because that is how I feel. It's like, wake up, people. And for me, it's been a little over 4 years. And initially, I would not call myself vegan. It was like, I thought all you vegans were crazy. Yeah, I didn't want to be a vegan. And I was at the grocery store 6 months into, about 6 months. And I'm walking by the meat department, and I literally stopped in my tracks, because it was weird. I had this in my ears, hearing the screams and the cries of the animals. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've been contributing to that. Even though it had been 6 months, I still look at what I did in the past. I used to wear leather. I was a carnivore till the day, it was crazy.
Yes.
My whole thing was, the rarer the meat, the more I loved it. And it's like, what is that about? And I had to go through a forgiving process of forgive myself for not knowing. But once I knew, I couldn't go back. So with this whole health issue, because a lot of people think it's only about the animals, but it truly is about the health of the mind, body, soul, the animals, the environment, all of that. How do you educate people on the whole issue of health? Because we're becoming sicker by the day.
Absolutely. I think health is an issue that relates to so many people. And if they don't necessarily care about the animals at first, they will certainly care about their health, or at least the planet, because they live on the planet. So with health, I do try to just bring up certain facts. I think knowing your information and knowing the facts, such as the World Health Organization has classified meats as processed carcinogens for our body, and that it's really, really bad to eat. I recommend certain films like What the Health on Netflix is really a powerful film that can help educate people about these products that are destroying our insides. And also Game Changers is another really good one it talks about athletes and how once they changed to a plant-based diet, their performance increased, and it's just really inspirational stories. So with my activism though, I try to meet people where they're at, in a sense. Like, I will try to get to the bottom of what it is that gets them ticking. So like, what is it for them? I ask a lot of questions. So I'm like, what would be the hardest part about going vegan for you? Or, I'll say something like, what do you think about this footage? So kind of get like a gauge of where they're at, and then really like go into, if they're environmentalists, let's talk about the environment. If they're animal rights people, let's talk about animals. I mean, at the end of the day, veganism is about the animals. Because, if you're a health person, like, sure, you can refrain from these products, but a piece of cheesecake isn't going to kill you. Like, you really have to like understand that at the end of the day, we're vegan for the animals, and you will never not be vegan. There's no such thing as an ex-vegan, I believe. Like, you will never not be vegan if you connect with the message for the animals.
I love what you just said about there's no such thing as an ex-vegan, because I belong to several Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. And there's one group that is vegan for beginners, or beginner vegans. I don't know what the exact name is. And it's a great group, other than the fact that a lot of people talk about the vegan diet. And it's not a diet. Plant-based eating is the diet. Veganism is a philosophy and a way of life. And there are people that said, well, I was doing this vegan thing for a while, the vegan diet for a while, but then I just had to have that piece of cheese, or and it's like, once you're vegan, you're vegan. It's like you've crossed that line, and it may be that your behaviors are not in alignment. So let's talk about aligned behaviors and ex-vegans and vegan diet and all that. What's your take on all that?
When you go vegan, you stop seeing animal products as food. I don't look at an animal and think
I love
food.
I that is awesome. Keep going, keep going.
So yeah, so it's like that piece of cheese to me is a piece of coagulated breast milk that caused a baby to be separated from its mother and slaughtered. Like that to me, it's blood, it's violence, it's death, it's suffering. That's not food, and that is not something I want in my body.
You just put it very nicely in a package with a bow on top. And let's talk about the whole issue of people's emotional well-being. Now, we know that the people working in the factory farms, obviously, there's a lot of mental issues going on. There's alcoholism, drug abuse, there's abuse at home. They take it from the factory farm to the home. There's plenty of documentation on that. But what about just in general, people that aren't fully aware of what goes on in factory farms, but they're consuming the energy of death, suffering, anxiety, fear, watching their friends and their family being murdered in front of them. What's your take on all of that, and how do you educate people around that?
This is a huge subject matter that interests me a lot, and that I try to talk to people about, because when the animals are about to die, they have a ton of cortisol and hormones running through their bodies. They're stressed out, they're scared, and those hormones actually go into our bodies, and we consume that violence, that fear, that suffering, that death. And so I always say, like, we want to eat living cells. We want to eat the light, and whatever you're putting into your body, that then grows and becomes, cells in your body that make up who you are today. So I do think that there's a huge correlation between eating meat and depression, and people that, are consuming this type of energy and violence.
What I always invite people to do is keep a food journal, like write down what you ate and then notice how you felt right after, and notice how you felt a few hours after. And were you feeling more depressed? Were you feeling more hopeless? And if you eat meat, and if you eat plant-based foods. And see, that's the distinction too. A lot of people go from being carnivores to processed vegan food, and that's not real healthy. It's good for the animals, but it's not real healthy. So it's really about a holistic approach to what we're doing in life. And again, how can people find you, Jamie?
Absolutely. So I'm at JLo Kurtz on Instagram, but also my YouTube and podcast page is It's Jamie's Corner. And, I do just want to say one more thing about activism and just ways that people can get involved, because I think each and every one of us has our own skills and our own talents that we can then use to help make the world a better place.
Right.
And so whether you're an artist, whether you're a musician, whether you're a filmmaker like myself, whether you're somebody that's a public speaker like you, Kathleen, I think that we can all contribute to this issue in so many different ways. For artists, you can make posters, you can stick them up all over town, you can make signs and stand outside of certain corporations and raise awareness. For musicians, you can write songs about this. We can make films. So there's so many different ways to contribute. And this is an issue that really we need an army to take this down, because these industries are so powerful. It's really all about money for them, and they'll do whatever they want, whether it's destroy our planet and run our world into the ground just for money. So,
you're hitting on a whole nother topic that we'll have to do another episode around, that the whole politics behind keeping people sick, keeping people in mental disease, that it is profitable for healthcare. It's profitable for the food manufacturers. And a really good book that I always recommend to people is Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss, because it shows what the food manufacturers have done to get us hooked on certain foods. And, so I really appreciate you mentioning all the ways about activism. But what I encourage people to do is, first of all, go watch your YouTube channel. It's Jamie's Corner. And just go to YouTube. You're going to be blown away. I love it. And I also appreciate all the different ways that you mentioned about activism, because when I first really identified as a vegan, I thought, okay, now I have to become a nutritionist and now I have to coach people on what to eat. And I was like, oh gosh, that is so far removed from what I want to do. I love being on the microphone. I love writing, and I love connecting with people like yourself who are doing your life's work. So let's look at where you see things going over the next 5 to 10 years, if we're even going to be around. You know, it's like a lot of people, they are climate change deniers. They say it's not happening. And this happens with a lot of politicians. And they're getting money funded by the very organizations that are destroying the environment. I mean, it's all crazy. Like the FDA, 45% of their funding to approve certain drugs comes from the very companies that they're approving drugs on. I mean, you know, if you pull back the curtain, you look at what's really going on, and the earth may rebound. It's not going to be soon, but we're destroying people every single day. So where do you see things in 5 to 10 years?
So I think with any sort of social justice movement, you have to remain optimistic. And that's why we keep fighting, right? Because we do believe that there will be an end to this suffering one day. And at least while we're here, try to, make the world a better place where we can. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I do see innovations with cultured meat coming about and cultured milk products, where, for those of you that aren't that you don't know what that is, it's basically where they take the cells of animal flesh and they make it in a lab and then just put that out on the grocery market shelves. It's the same thing as meat, except you don't have to slaughter an animal for it. And so I think that that's the wave of the future, because I don't know if we're going to necessarily be getting all these hunters and people that deny climate change. I don't know if we're going to get them to go vegan. I think they're going to want to eat meat.
Right.
But if we can give them a product that removes the animal from the equation, that I think really is the future. I think we got to put money into that. I think we have to scale it and just keep that going. Hopefully, another really important thing in the next 5 to 10 years is to reallocate where our tax dollars are going, where the government subsidies go. Because right now in America, the way that it's set up is our tax dollars actually go directly to the meat, dairy, and egg industries. And that's why they're able to make these products so cheap. And that's why you go to, Burger King, you see a burger for $1.50,
right,
and you see a head of lettuce that's $5.
Right.
It's because of where the government subsidies go. So if we could reallocate where that money's going, take it away from these industries and put it into healthy alternatives and make that super, super cheap for people, I think it'll give others an incentive to go plant-based.
Absolutely. And that's more of the veil being lifted, is if people could see what the government has done to actually keep people downtrodden, if you will, with the way they eat, with lack of educational, there's so many issues going on here. So I really encourage people to, again, check out your YouTube channel. What are the documentaries that you would recommend people watch, Jamie?
So the main ones that really did it for me was Earthlings on YouTube. It's free for everybody. And I think Game Changers is a really good one if you're into health. I also recommend What the Health on Netflix. And Cowspiracy was another really good one that talked a lot about the environment and just opened my eyes to a lot of issues. And then a few other documentaries that I would recommend that I actually worked on and produced would be by our company Cave Light Films. And we've made documentaries about live animal markets in New York City called The Fight to Ban Live Animal Markets. You can watch some of our other films about the fashion industry. We've made films about the Save movement, some of those vigils which I was actually in. And if you want to check those out, just go to our website, Cave Light Films, and click on the animal issue, and you can watch them all there.
Great. And we'll make sure to put all that in the show notes. And Jamie, I just want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on the podcast show. I so love what you're doing, and I look forward to getting to know you better. And perhaps one day we will meet together at a vigil, and maybe there will come a day we won't need those vigils anymore. But that's in a fairy dust world. But the reality is animals are suffering, people are suffering, the planet is suffering, and people like Jamie is doing what she can to raise the awareness. And again, go to the YouTube channel. You're You're going to be entertained. You're going to be shocked. And you hopefully will be enlightened as to what you can do to make a difference in the world. This is Kathleen Gage with the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. You have a great day. Be healthy. Live kindly.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Vegan Visibility Podcast Show. Be sure to subscribe to get notified when the next episode is live. And we always appreciate reviews. Join us next time for more inspiration, education, and motivation to build your business one cruelty-free and healthy person at a time.